We're taking a look at global ventures unveiling Nigeria's travel and education economy. I already have two global minds that will be joining me virtually from the US, and I have Benedict Ochago live here with me in the studio in Benin. Good afternoon, Benedict.
Good afternoon.
Good to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
Okay, you're looking sharp and
Thank you so much for the compliment.
Okay, let me start off with you before we join our virtual guest. Now, can you provide for us some kind of overview on the current landscape of Nigeria's travel and education sector? Let's have a little startup opening.
When we talk about the landscape of the Nigeria travel sector in education, a kind of educational tourism, I think the thing has really, in terms of landscape, it has really, the pendulum has really shifted towards a kind of immigration instead of immigration. We used to enjoy that. We used to enjoy that possibility of having foreigners so much coming into Nigeria. We used to have plenty of them from within Africa and outside Africa coming into Nigeria for education and vis-a-vis what we call education tourism. But as it is right now, what we see here today is that there is mass exodus of Nigerians from here moving to every part of the world for education and all of that. And it's not really telling well. The indices are not really telling well on our economy and also on our educational system. Because for you to have a very strong educational system, there is need for exchange of ideas. There is need for exchange of philosophies and ideologies. And that is what we are lacking. In those days, it used to be a case of in the 80s, in the 90s,
early 90s,
you see other Africans teaching in our secondary school. Not just students alone. They are teaching in our secondary school, and their children are also schooling
in that same school.
Even then, you see wife of diplomats like the white teaching in our schools, and some as lecturers and all of that. And so there was this kind of robust activities going on in our educational system, and that actually attracted a lot of foreigners into our educational system until 1980, when there was a kind of an order that we can no longer meet up with employment rate, and so we needed to prioritize Nigerians
first.
And then there was a kind of law that or a kind of an order that the foreigners should go. And then when they left, the Ghanaians left, some of the whites they left, the Indians and all of those people, they left. And from then, though that order was supposed to help us in build indigenous capacity, but it has not really produced that over the years. Then we have seen a decline in influx of foreigners coming into our educational system, vis-a-vis affecting the revenue that is supposed to come from that place.
All right, thank you very much, Ben. So let's now join my guest virtually from the United States of America. Charles is a co-founder and chief operations officer at Cyber Training Group International. Good afternoon, Charles. Good to have you on the show this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here.
Okay, so how's everything over there?
Well, everything is great.
Okay.
Some things are,
all right. We're taking a look at the global ventures unveiling the Nigeria's travel and education economy. Now, can you just give us a little or provide an overview of the current landscape of Nigeria's travel and education sector?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think what I'm going to attempt to do. Can you hear me very well?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. Yeah, what I'm going to attempt to do is to perhaps paint a picture of how it should be, what it should look like. I think I heard the last speaker talk about the fact that you no longer have a whole lot of external people coming to Nigeria to do education, tourism. Well, that is not an accident. It's not a surprise. It's happening that way because I'm not very sure, I'm not very certain that government policies are actually favoring the need, the desire for foreigners to come and explore and interface or interact with our very rich culture. I mean, we know we have a lot of culture, a lot of culture in our country. Doesn't matter what part of the country you are, whether it's in the north, south, east, or west, there's a lot of culture to be explored. You know, that the challenge for most people wanting to come to Nigeria, the first thing they're going to tell you is security, security, security. And that affects every area of life in our country and also affects foreigners who would like to come and experience our food. They want to experience our culture. They want to experience our music. All of that, even though we have all those necessary things that people would like to come and explore, the landscape is not as at now, it's not great because of government policies. However, I think that can change if we shift our attention. By we, I mean both the people and the government. If we start to do things differently, especially things that will promote the exchange or the interest of foreigners to want to come to Nigeria and explore, again, our very rich culture and food and music and people. And so we have a lot to show foreigners, but we need the help of government. I think I will stop there for now. So the landscape is not as great as it should be, given what we have, but there is hope for a brighter future.
Mr. Charles Obe, while he also had his own contribution from that same first opening question I asked. Now, you said something about Nigerians going to emigrating to the foreign countries. Do you see this as a brain drain issue? Because this has been some of the talk. People actually think it's happening. Either they are leaving, they say they want to go study for higher degrees, then when they get there, they stay back and start working over there. Do you see it more like we're exporting our talent from here to the other part of the world?
Yeah, that is what it is, unfortunately, because the instability in our economy is the major factor.
Okay.
And then looking at the disparity between the economy of the West and our own economy vis-a-vis our currency.
Okay.
And everybody wants to have the higher currency.
Absolutely, you want to have the hard currency.
Working. And eventually we end up going there to school as second-class citizen and also keep working as second-class citizen. It's quite unfortunate because that seems to be like a modern-day slavery.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because no matter how long you stay, or no matter even if you have the passport,
you have the papers, everything.
You are still seen second-class citizen. Second-class because you nationalized. It was
we're not by birth.
If it's by birth, then it is considered in a very high regard, even though when you nationalize, you're also treated equally in many regards, but sometimes you see a lot of disparities and all of that. So it's quite unfortunate that the best brains that are supposed to go school and bring the ideas, the cultures of the people don't really find the enabling environment to come back to. Because if you have gone and schooled in a system that works, you have acquired the knowledge. And then it is expected that you come back and also meet a system where you can transmit that knowledge and build the system and impart your system.
Absolutely.
But when there are no framework to enhance your ability, to enhance your technical know-how and your mental capacity, where you can really operate and perform, and given that leverage, then you find no reason than to say, okay, let me remain here. I have learned here, even though I would want to go back, but there is no system for me to operate. And also because the first instinct in a man is survival.
Absolutely.
If there is no survival, the package for survival. in sufficient level, then you want to take advantage of the place where you deem fit, when you deem it fit to stay and also make ends meet and survive properly.
Okay. All right. Let's let's move back to Charles Obi. Let's get Charles's own opinion on this. Okay, Mr. Charles, are you still there? Okay, now my other question for you is how do Nigerians travel agency integrate into educational tourism to bring back good economic advantage to Nigeria as a nation? How do we package this whole idea to grow the nation's GDP right here in Nigeria?
That's another very interesting question. But before I respond to that,
Okay.
I want to make a quick comment about what the last speaker said,
Oh, all right.
and that is the fact that a lot of Nigerians go abroad, study, and behave and perform like second-class citizens. That is not completely true. I don't
Okay.
think that is true because in any country you go to, whether it's the United Kingdom or America, Nigerians, professionals, whether they are medical doctors, whether they are lawyers, whether they are engineers, they are contributing quite a bit, not only to the GDP of the country, but they are contributing a lot of talent. They are contributing to the social environment. As you know, as you all are aware today, a lot of Nigerians are becoming elected officers in some of these countries. So really, I don't know, you cannot be a second-class citizen and still perform in these roles. Maybe that was not what he meant. So, but to your question, travel agents can integrate educational tourism into their plan and therefore contribute to the revenue of the country. See, they can do it in several different ways, but one way they can do it is to make sure that packaging education tourism is part of their portfolio, is part of the services they offer. In other words, it means that if you are going to sell somebody an idea that if you come to Nigeria, for example, I already talked about we have a lot of culture, which many people don't have. We have a lot of good food, which a lot of people don't have. And if you package it in a very nice way to let people know, say, for example, you come to Benin, we can take you to go and see the Benin Moat. The Benin Moat was a fortress that defended the.
But sorry to chip in. The Benin moat you're talking
Okay.
about today, right now, in the city of Benin, in some places are now dump sites, but it's supposed to be a recreational center.
That's a great observation. Remember earlier I said the government needs to step in. It's not
Okay.
enough to want to generate. It's not enough to want to generate funds for the country,
Yeah.
but you want to make sure that the private enterprises that are willing to promote this culture, that are willing to promote this social environment, are well funded. In other words, they have easy access to capital so that they can expand their small base that they have today. If you examine the Benin mode, for example,
Yeah.
yes, some parts have become dumps.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Why are they dumps? What you see there is a microcosm of what
Yeah.
happens in our country. In
True.
all we do, we don't finish. We start, but we don't finish. You
Okay.
see, if you really want to promote tourism in Edo State, and Benin Moat is one of those places you want to showcase to the outside world, there has to be cooperation. Others we call it PPP, private-public partnership. But there has
Partnership.
to be
Yeah.
cooperation between the travel agencies, between the government, and other investors. And these investors could come from outside. And when you start to link Benin Moat to protection, security of the people, and the
Yeah.
history of the rich history of the people will want to come and see what
Okay.
this Benin Moat is all about. And
Okay.
so, yes, I think if travel agents can get support from
The
private
government.
investors and the government,
Okay.
they can pass their ways.
All right, let me pause you there because my guest here in the studio with me here I want to react to something you said. Ben, I saw you nodding your head while he was talking.
Yeah.
You have something to say.
Yeah, it's not a matter of reacting, just to
Okay, to
lend
add to
voice
what
to
he
what
said.
he has said,
Okay.
because he has made a lot of
points.
points and all of that. And then also talking about how we can be able to attract those people.
Yeah.
First of all, we need to design a curriculum that is unique.
Okay.
Because if anybody will have to come
When you
to,
say unique, how do you mean?
there is
Because are you not saying we don't have a curriculum that has been unique all this
no,
while?
no.
Okay.
When I say unique,
Yeah.
it has to capture our uniqueness as a people.
As a people, okay, in terms of
it
culture and everything.
In terms of
Oh,
our
okay,
culture,
okay, I get
it
you.
has to capture whom we are. And that's what we have struggled and we have not really
Over the
been able to
years.
attain over the years. Because if a foreigner will have to leave his or her country to come to your country, what special, what different thing is it coming to learn?
Yeah.
And then if at this stage, we all in all of our curriculum, what we still teach our children is that A is for apple,
B is for ball.
You know, all of those things. Meanwhile, in modern days, A is already for artificial intelligence. It's no longer for apple and all of that, those things. If you keep telling our kids that P is for pig, and then while instead of us to tell them that P is for production, because those are the things,
the factors that drives the economy.
M is no longer for mango, it's supposed to be for mining, because we have natural resources that the kids need to grow up, learn mining and take advantage of the knowledge. And so we have to come home and design a curriculum that is geared towards projecting our culture of whom we are. And some of the things we have learned before, we will relearn them. For example, when the white came, they told us that Mungo Park discovered River Niger.
But at the end of the day, we saw it wasn't he that discovered River Niger.
Our forefathers had been farming at the bank of River Niger, fishing at the bank of River Niger, even before the advent of the white. How will it be that Mungo Park discovered River Niger? So those are some of the knowledge, educational system and curriculum they designed for us. And unfortunately, because of our infant level, we accepted some of those things. And so at this time where we have grown, where we have come of age, we are supposed to redesign those things and bring a curriculum that will capture the uniqueness of Nigeria, the uniqueness of Africa, and also sell it out to people
for them to buy.
We have to employ people that image maker, because image making is the most necessary thing for a nation.
Absolutely.
For example, if you go to America, what Americans do in their film and all of those things they do, you will not see weaknesses in their film.
Absolutely, you won't. You won't. You know, sorry, I was actually told that this very big, this movie, what was it called, Titan, that it was shot in a swimming pool. But the way you look at it, it was shot in an ocean.
Because they want to, they will not tell you that when you go to Los Angeles, you will see people on the streets, and all of that. You go to some states that there are a lot of drug addicts and all of that, because they have to project their country in a way that is beautiful. The reason why people go to China today to study is because there's uniqueness there. The Indians has come home and there is uniqueness there. People want to go to study in China, to study. But before now, it was not so. What did they do? We have to borrow, we have to interface with all of those knowledge and come back
put
home.
It together.
What do we do? Because if we want to earn in foreign currency, educational tourism is one of the biggest ways we can earn in foreign foreign currency and all of that.
All right.
So we must come back home to develop.
I need to pause you now because we need to go on a short break. We need to go on a short break. After this break, we will be joining Dr. Paul. We'll be having some little challenge, but we've been able to connect with Dr. Paul. We'll join Dr. Paul, but we'll have to go on the short break. After the break, the show continues in a moment. Stay with us and go nowhere. All right, welcome back, and it's the business this week. We're still taking a look into global ventures, how unveiling Nigeria's travel and education economy, how this can attract investment into the nation and bring development into Nigeria. And I still have my guest who is here with me live in the studio, and one of my guests joining virtually from United States of America, and I also have Dr. Igarewa, who is also joining from the United States of America. So let's now join Dr. Igarewa. Let's get his own perspective of the topic of discussion. Good afternoon, Dr. Igarewa. How are you doing this afternoon here in Nigeria?
Very well. Good morning again. You know,
you're looking amazingly good.
Thank you.
All right. So I believe you've been listening to us, and we've been looking at the global venture, how we can unveil Nigeria's travel and education economy. But despite the little challenge we'll be having joining you. Now, what are some of the strategies do you think that Nigeria travelers or agencies can actually use to attract international students and bring in development into Nigeria? from your own perspective.
Yeah, thank you very much. Happy to be part of this conversation.
All right,
I've
thanks for
heard
joining us.
other participants having abused very interesting suggestions on how we can really capitalize on these, what I would call low-hanging fruits, because it bears so much opportunities. Um, I'm a student of the late 70s, and I actually had that personal experience where our French teacher was a Frenchman, and so many of the other teachers in sciences and physics, they were Indians. There were even some Italians. So we had that experiences. Now, why was that? Because the country was very stable. It was very attractive. The purchasing power parity was comparative to any developed nation in the world. So, from that perspective, it was an attractive place to come to, you know, for economic reasons, for the same reasons that you will find Nigerians leaving the country now for studies and now returning, because all of those advantages that we once experienced are no longer there. Now, but the opportunities still exist. We have to approach this from a business perspective, like it is a business. When you are planning, strategizing for a market intrusion, penetration, saturation, and domination, you really have to have a strategic roadmap to enter a new market. So that is where we have to come to that table or strategizing, and have all the stakeholders to be part of this planning and strategizing process. That will include the government, the small business operators, and the other people that matters. And I give you an example. The gentleman mentioned the Benin moat. The Benin moat is one of the oldest earthwork in the world. It is a marketable, actually, the Benin moat in Benin, of course, for those that may not know where Benin moat is a very attractive and interesting place that can be branded and marketed. But how do we go about doing this? Has there been a concerted effort in really branding and marketing? Those are the things we have to look at. Now, there are case studies in place. The Great Wall of China, for instance, brings in almost 600 billion. Actually, by 2023 data, it brought in almost $600 billion in revenue, just the Great Wall of China. In fact, it was recorded in 2020. It generated almost 10 billion in 4 days from tourism. Now, in comparison, the Benin mode is more attractive. Created in the 13th century, one of the oldest earthwork. The government, have to lead the way in this effort and really put a strategy together that will help brand it and market it. The Westerners are naturally inquisitive people. They embark on ventures. They like discoveries. Of course, we already know that, right? The gentleman mentioned Mago Park and discovering River Niger, but we know the truth about that. Yeah, so they are naturally predisposed to venturing new avenues. So the interest is already there. We just now have to monetize it. In monetizing it, there has to be a strategy in place to really go out, market, set ambassadors with metrics, not assigning positions or throwing funds that does not yield result. There has to really be a calculated effort in doing this. And regular review of, are we meeting those metrics? For instance, if you were to assign this project to an agency, to a department, or to an individual, there has to be a matrix over a period of time that, all right, we will invest X amount of dollars or naira, if you will, for this project, provide all the tools, having set out the modalities. And then periodically we review to see, are we meeting these targets? Are we having a return on investment? It's not sufficient to approach this from a political perspective where we just arbitrarily assign this responsibility to a person who may be a party member, or a compensation. No, it really needs to be a result-driven effort that will be periodically reviewed to see if we are meeting those targets. So Benin Mode is one. The Oba Palace itself, it's an interesting enterprise. Again, that can be marketed. There has to be a concerted effort in doing that. In the US here, the education system that the gentleman mentioned earlier about developing a curriculum, these are already woven in the curriculum here. Now, our education structure needs to mimic that, where there's really an active collaboration, with sister university across the world, because knowledge is a continuum. It is not relegated to a certain part of the world. We have brilliant minds in Africa, and in Nigeria, is known. Now, we just have to leverage on all of those. Now, he mentioned the other things that need to be in place. That is true. Yeah, security is pivotal. People have to feel safe in coming to an environment. But having said that, would you, in Texas, there's what they call a free open carry law, which means you have a right as a Texan citizen to carry a gun, right? So you can walk around the street with a gun. And then you have many areas in this place where they have the stand your ground law. So if you invade my area where I feel safe, you can be shot. Now, do you see that being publicized all over the world and painting America as the most dangerous place to visit? No, it does not. Now, we are only painted as unsafe because those that ought to stand and challenge that narrative do not do so. So we allow our country to be painted and projected a certain way without countering that presentation. Every country in the world have their own challenges. Brazil is still a favorite destination, but I can assure you that there are just as much insecurity challenges in Brazil as it is in Nigeria. So there are many other countries where you have challenges, but we can't resolve that because of these challenges. We are no longer a viable destination. Again, it goes back to the branding, like the gentleman mentioned about Titanic being shot in the pool, and it was presented to the world at this gigantic ocean where all of these magical things were done, and America, superhero, land of superhero, but it's all in the branding. What you project is what the people will accept. So it's a hard time that we go to the drawing board to begin to really address some of these things and capitalize on these low-hanging fruits. If we are going to generate revenue, if we are going to achieve our right place in Africa as we ought to, and right places in the world, we really need to begin to make some bold steps. And that bold steps involve recognizing the things that we need to do, targeting the people that have the capacity, the capability, anywhere they may be, and bringing them to be on board. It should not be something that's relegated to political patronage, which becomes some of the albatross that we are dealing with. So a minister of trade does not necessarily have to be a party man. Okay,
I get that.
commissioner
True.
of trade or tourism
Or the
does not
Minister of
necessarily
Education.
have to be a member of your party. You have
Okay.
to have the best hand to really go after delivering on all of these
All right.
missions. And if
Okay,
they can,
Dr.
yes,
Paul,
and if they can
let me
produce,
pause you there a bit. So we
Okay.
get a take from Mr. Charles, who is still already, who is still with us from the same US. Let me get his take on another part of this conversation. Now, Mr. Charles, can you hear me?
So I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Now, do you think that there are some strategies that are employed by some of these travel agencies in order to woo young Nigerians to migrate from here down there to study? Do you think they have some strategies they use in actually cajoling these young minds who are supposed to be brains here to come over to that end for either educational tourism or study? Before I get the take of my guest seated here in the studio.
Okay. Well, I will be totally transparent here. I think that for anyone to leave the shores of their homeland to want to go elsewhere, there has to be something very attractive to them. I believe that people make deliberate choices for their lives, and educational tourism may happen to be, or happens to be, a small part of that. Now, if I, sell you a package that says, if you come to California, you are going to see the best beaches in the world. The reality is that is not true. Because before I lived in California, for example, I thought all you have in California is coconut trees, white sand beaches, BEACHES, and open top cars. And because that's all you see coming from the Hollywood in California, the reality is there are people in California who have never been to the beach. Yet the beach is only a few miles away from them. There are people in California who have never ridden in an open top car. I'm sorry.
I said an average Nigerian wouldn't want to believe that because the
But
mindset is that everybody who is there have actually been to the beach in California.
Yes, that is the I think it aligns with part of what Dr. Igaria was saying. It's about the branding. It's about the packaging. We take people to the Caribbeans all the time, Jamaica, the Bahamas, to go on cruises, to go and visit the Bahamas. What they get when they go there? People show them the delicate or delicacies, their food, the conch, for example. It's something that people want, they just want to have a taste of that because of what they have heard. So that in our case, when I say in our case, Nigeria, for example, the first place any foreigner, the first place where they should hear about the goodness of Nigeria or the type of culture we have in Nigeria should be in our embassies, because they come to get visa to want to come to Nigeria. And when they come with that, for the foreigners, that is, they should see how great our country is. They should see videos. Those videos should be playing in the hallways of our embassies. But directly to your question, no, I'm not so sure that travel agents are enticing Nigerians to come abroad. But I think some of it ties into, like the other gentleman was saying, the movies that you see. When you see those movies, I personally, for example, I thought Cutting Comes to Harlem was the best thing to happen to African Americans and Black people. But when I came to America, I found that was not necessarily true. I thought all you are going to see is Lincoln Continentals and those type of stretch cars that make you feel like, yeah, America, I'm here now. But that's not necessarily true. When you come to America, you're going to work. You're going to work hard. And sometimes some people may not tell you, but You will even be working in McDonald's company, serving food, even with a 4-year degree. But the thing is, that is seriously,
Wow.
that is the beauty of America
Okay.
because opportunities are abound. What should happen is when people are sold a package, they need to do their own research. They need to find out what I'm being sold here. Is this a bill of goods that I will not be able to experience when I get there? In other words, reach out to your friends, reach out to your family members, reach out to people from your community. For example, sister, this is ITV Benin. You have a lot of Edo people in the US. So if any Edo person is being coerced to come to America, reach out to the Edo community and say, is this true? Double check, make sure that you are not being scammed. If you are being told to come to Italy because there is some opportunities here for you, you're going to get a job that pays you 6 figures the moment you arrive. The reality is that you don't even need to check that. When somebody tells you you come from Nigeria, you're going to get 6-figure salary. If that was the case, there will not be poor people in the streets in those countries. And I think there's some common sense in all of this for people
All
to
right.
do their
Mr. Charles,
homework. Yes,
let me pause you there for some few minutes before I come back to you and Dr. Ilariwa for us to wrap up. But let me hear from my guest here in the studio before I come back to you both for us to take a final lap on the show. All right, Ben, you overheard me asking him if there are any strategies put in place by some of these travel agencies to make Nigerians move over there. From your own personal perspective, do you see that as something that these travel agencies do?
Considering where we are as a nation right now, the travel agency does not really need to do much. The reality on ground compels people to leave Nigeria.
Want to leave.
And so it makes the work of the travel agency very easy. Because if everybody, the pressure is even on them to work out things for the people. The people apply pressure on them, and then that's why you see that there's hike in the fees, in even the consultation and all of that, because the natural law of demand and supply sets in. When there are high demand on it, then the prices automatically shoot up. That's why you see that people spend as much as $10,000, $20,000, $15,000 to want to leave Nigeria to go abroad and school. And it's not telling where that is not a good thing for us. But also, my primary concern is on how we can be able to attract the people like Dr. Paul Egarewa said and Dr. Charles actually said. They made a lot of points concerning that, because we need to take education as business.
Absolutely.
And in every business, there's supposed to be a return on investment. And how do we do that? Is to come back home and, the PR, the way we project those in politics and those that sells Nigeria need to do more. Because when you are talking about insecurity in Nigeria, for example, in Benin, everybody is moving freely.
Absolutely.
So the people need to tell the
world
good
part of the story.
Benin is safe, that Lagos is safe, that Ogun State is safe. That
even Ebonyi is safe.
Ebonyi is safe.
Have to make mention to that.
You know that this part is safe and all of this. That is not, when you hear that there's kidnap,
it's not everywhere in Nigeria that happens.
So we have to project those places, because earlier this morning, a friend of mine who actually schooled in Uniben here, he came to do his master's in Uniben here some time ago. But because of a lot of things, he couldn't complete the program. And then he called me earlier this morning and was lamenting about his experience here. It was not a palliative one at all. Although he made an exception that it is not in every department. And also it was not in that some of his colleagues that went to some other university outside of here, and also that were in other departments, even in Uniben, they had very palatable experience. But the thing, what we need to do is, we need to set up a system where the foreign students will report issues. We'll be able to air their mind. This is what we're experiencing. This is what we are going through. And those things should be fixed. Those concerns should be fixed. But first of all, we need to, because our Naira is low right now. And that's supposed to be an advantage in bringing, because the people that used to see our currency to be high will take advantage of the fact that our currency is low. They will troop in to come and study here if we give them a very palatable environment.
Let me take the final take of Dr. Paul and Charles as we wrap up the show. Dr. Paul, can you hear me?
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I'll
Quickly,
just
as we wrap up in the next few minutes, we just have you have like 1 minute for to wrap up with me here, so that other programs can come on board. Now, what would be your advice to the educational sector, like the government generally here, to fix our educational sector in order for it to attract direct investment, like grow our GDP, rather than our citizens living here and going over there? Quickly.
yes. First, I would not subscribe to restricting the citizens to be relegated to study in Nigeria. I think that should be left at will and affordability. But having said that, we have, like the other gentleman said, we have to first make our institutions standardized. They have to be comparable, and they have to also be attractive. They have to have curriculum that is challenging enough and comparable to what obtains in the Western world. And with all of the other advantages that we have, we'll make it attractive for people, for instance, to want to come to Nigeria to study in a Nigerian university or go to University of Ibadan, one of our premier universities, and even many other private universities that are actually of world standard. All of those things needs to be in place, and then it needs to be branded properly. Again, like I mentioned earlier, when we are planning for a business and business development, you are planning market intrusion, market penetration and saturation. You really have to have all of these things in place. It's got to be strategized. You set the tone, you set the
Dr. Egariwa.
narrative, and you go out there and make it attractive for people to want to come. And just to ask the last point,
Okay.
that the naira is low is really not a disadvantage. It
All right.
can actually be an advantage because others will want to come in to take advantage
Absolutely.
of that low naira. So
Okay.
in that, you have a net gain in the process.
All
China,
right.
for instance, intentionally and actively keep their yuan very low to
Okay.
make it attractive for you to
Dr.
visit.
Charles, please, we're really pressed for time. Let me get the take of Mr. Paul so that we can wrap up. All right. Dr. Ariwa, can you hear me? Thank you
Yes,
very
I
much.
can.
Let me take the take
Yeah.
of Charles Obi so that we can wrap up. Mr. Charles, can you hear me now? Okay, so let's get your final take on this issue as we wrap up in less than 1 minute. What do you think the government should do in order to keep this investment here and grow our GDP? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
In less than 1 minute, please.
Okay, sure. I was saying this has been a very educational session. A lot of good ideas have been shared here. I hope that some of this can turn out to be something positive for our great state and also for our nation. I believe that the government has a role to play in making sure that tourism is not just an idea, it's not just a ministry, but something that is very active and proactive. The government, the school system, especially the higher education, the universities, can even develop a program. Maybe that's what the other gentleman was saying about curriculum. Have a specialization in tourism, for example, where people can get degrees and diplomas in tourism. And these people can work with the travel agencies, the travel industry, and I don't know if we have Better Business Bureau in Nigeria, but the Department of Commerce to
Okay.
make sure that there is promotion for tourism in Nigeria. I heard about Brazil, I heard about China, but Nigeria has a lot to be proud of that they can showcase to the
We need
world.
to go. We're pressed for time. We need to go right now. I really want to thank you for your time. Mr. Charles is the co-founder and chief operations officer at Cyber Training Group International. Thank you very much for joining us from the United States of America. And we also had Dr. Paul Igareva, principal business analyst and consultant, GeForce Global System LCC, Washington, D.C., United States. Thank you very much for your thought and your time for joining us. Well, we hope we have more a topic like this, which we need your own opinion. When as we do, we will definitely call upon you guys to share your wide thought and international experience with us. We really want to thank you for your time on the show. And to the gentleman right here in the studio with me, looking all too shampoos. Thank you very much, Ben Ochago, an economist and an entrepreneur, someone who is doing really well in the business. So we appreciate you for your time. All right, that's the size of our package on the show this beautiful afternoon. We want to thank you for your time from start to the finish on the show. On behalf of the entire crew, the great team behind cameras that you won't see, but these guys are doing a whole lot. God willing, next week we'll be back here again to take you through on the show. I'm Lawrence Osifo saying see you again. Bye for now.